Well, hello there, YouTube. It's Petey Two Finger, and today I finished a render on an album. Now, when I say that, and I brought this up many times, I'm well aware of the fact that this is not an album. It's just a lot easier to just refer to it as an album. If I'm not trying to fool anyone or make it appear, especially myself, like I'm aware that this isn't a major label release, that it's just some demo songs that I recorded in my living room. And as far as me being some my head's inflated and I think I'm trying to set the world on fire with my guitar. Am I like that, Donna?
No.
Do I ever talk about my hobby outside of on YouTube, really?
No.
I really don't. I really try to not do that. Anyway, on a day like today when everything comes together and I finish with a huge project like an album, because it's not just the recording. You get done with the recording and then you have to find some way to share it with people. And for me, the way that made sense was to just give it, upload it to YouTube so you guys can hear it. The only issue with that is that then you really need to have video, and that's where I think I've made it clear that the video is the afterthought. Anyway, and that will be made painfully clear on this project. So, going back previous years, I've done this a lot. You know, when I was younger, I used to write lyrics, and I would sing this like really personal, emotional stuff. And after a while, I got older, and when guys are in there, when they're young, it's real easy for you to get a pen and pour your feelings out on a paper. When you're getting closer towards 60 years old, even 40, that becomes much more challenging. So for me, the answer was to focus on just the music aspect of it and just write instrumental music. So that's what I do. And I began this process of having limitations or concepts. Like 1 year I did an acoustic album. Now, I did a bunch of commercials. There was a dozen commercials for this album where I told everybody it was going to be this heavy metal madness, that I wasn't going to use any digital. It was going to be all tube and tape and analog, and I'm going to have a real drummer. And it was going to be this face-melting metal, and it was a acoustic album. It had all MIDI drums on it. Now, mind you, the software that I'm using now, it is MIDI, but boy, it sounds really good. It sounds like a mic'd up drum kit. I think it does. So let's see. I did like a noise rock album after that, and this year, like this video, if you haven't listened to the new album, well, the title will kind of give it away. There's no 6-string guitars on the album. It's all bass guitar. And when I finished it, it dawned on me that, this album, it really reflects my musical personality. Meaning, when I was done with it, I listened to it, and there really weren't many like throwaway tracks. There is a little bit on there, but it's really because of my handicap, because I'm missing these fingers. I've developed out of limitation, because there's only a couple things I can do, that has refined itself as the illusion of a style. So this album is the truest Petey Two Finger album. I think it is. I think I can say that. Other projects, I will go at an angle, like, this song, I'm going to write a blues song, or that's a terrible example. I never. But there's different things that come into my head where I'll put parameters on the music, and it will come out something that is more of an experiment, and it's not so close to just naturally what pours out of me when I'm just playing or creating music so freely. So that's what's really unique about this album. Isn't just that it's just a bass album. It's that it's really the most Petey-ish of the Two Finger solo albums, for lack of a better way of saying that. Now, this is really complicated to talk about. This goes back many years, and the list, when we were coming up with the text of things that I wanted to write in the description box on the actual video upload, I have a section where I wanted to thank some people, and the person who got the extra special super duper thanks is my brother Bjorn. Bjorn has been generous, and he's gifted me some things over the years. He gave me this my favorite humbucker guitar, my Cork 45. And I've written more music on that guitar than any other instrument. Now, he also gave me this goofy BC Rich bass. Now, I got this thing. It's a white Warlock bass, and if you know about BC Rich, they're real pointy. They look like something a wizard would play. They're really distinctive looking instruments, and they look like they're for heavy metal or glam rock, is what they looked like. So at some point, I obtained a cardinal suit. So it's a full red, like a chicken suit. Okay, so I put this suit on. It's got a big bird head with a big yellow beak, and I put that on one night. I think I had been drinking, and I went outside. It was a summer night at like 10:30. And my wife had the camera, and I get that BC Rich bass, because I was going to use that as a prop. I thought either if I had a rifle, like if I had to get a shotgun, that would make for a great photo. A big bird holding a shotgun, how funny that would be. And I did wear that to the gun range for Bjorn's birthday party. He had a gun range birthday party, and that was great. I came walking up with that chicken suit, and they were all telling me, go out there, so they could shoot me. So I got this chicken suit on with this huge, ridiculous, pointy BC Rich bass, and I posed with it and took some pictures. And that one picture, I removed the background, and I've used that image. It's just me with this chicken suit, with this guitar, and I've used it a lot. And you'll see that I used it in the video quite a bit, extensively. So that night, I remember we had these neighbor friends. They're no longer around. R.I.P. Susanna. She was murdered. But Jose, or Umberto, and Susanna are neighbors. And I ran over, and they were watching TV, and I just stood there with this chicken suit on, and I could see them there. And I just stood there, and then finally they looked over. They knew it was me. They knew it was me immediately. They didn't call the cops, which is what I was worried about that. But usually when I tell the story, that's how I'll end that, is that they call the cops, and that I was running around with the police chasing me while I have this cardinal suit on. So eventually, like, we're coming into the early 2024, and it dawned on me how affordable you could get components and stuff like guitar or bass parts from China direct. And it also dawned on me that, you know what, that's not going to last forever. I was betting on, when I bought these parts, they were at the cheapest they ever would be. I'm thinking, if something happens, if we go to war with China, I'm not going to be able to afford to fix up that bass, because when I got that BC Rich bass, it was completely stripped. There was no pickups on it. The jack was gone. I think there was one pot in it and 3 tuners. Like, they really needed that one tuner. And it's a real distinctive, like, pointy tuner, too. Big, sharp, giant, pointy tuner on the BC Rich. So, by, I believe, June of 2024, I had that bass going again. And I had to reorder some stuff. Like, I got, like, the cheap version of this particular parts, and that would come, and I'd be, wow, that's really cheap. Let me get the next more expensive version. So I did, you know, it wasn't like I aced in the hole and did it, like, as cheap as I could. It's always a learning experience, and you always end up double ordering. That's just the way it is if you're trying to save money. And that's something you could learn from my experiences. Just get the more expensive stuff. On AliExpress, it's already so cheap. If you look at the prices, what you're going to pay at Guitar Center or pay from Fender, $90 for this set of tuners, and you know you can get them for $30 or $20. You know, don't get the $4 tuners. So by June of 2024, that bass was going, and it had everything on it. I even had a yellow police line do not cross strap, this like really gaudy strap that's perfect for that bass. It had some dings on it, and I used these. I bought a packet of bass fish stickers, and I put these bass over there was some like deep gouges in the bass, and I strategically put those stickers to cover the damage. So there's a bass thing with it too, the bass bass. And you know, when I finished it, I was like telling my wife, Gomti, you have to play that bass, because we have this duo, and I was like, you have to play it. It would look so cool, you know, because she's petite. My wife is not on Amazon. Her with this giant, ridiculous, you know, I always joked with her about getting her a Thunderbird bass, and she's like, no. And so she wouldn't have anything to do with that Orlock. So I was like, well, I spent all this money on it. I'm going to start recording with it and see how does it work. Now, at the same time, I found an ad on Facebook Marketplace where a guy had a Zoom B3 and a B2. And I have a B2 here that we used for years. It was Donna's main processor. I think I paid like $70 for it. Anyway, the B3 is a lot nicer, and he had both of them for free. So we drove down there somewhere in the city. My wife was really not wanting to do this, concerned about going through the hood. And it turned out to be totally safe. No bad neighbor. We didn't really see anybody looking like we were in danger. It was cold, so people weren't really out. We pulled up. The guy came up, and there were sets of Duracell batteries in these things, and I still have them in here, and they're still good. So I used mainly this B3. Now there's a band called The Locusts. There's a guy named Justin Person, and he was famous for going on Jerry Springer. He had a locust tattoo. He was in this band called The Locust. Man, they were really a crazy punk rock band. They wore these really bizarre outfits with these masks, and they did kind of a emo screamo thing, but like his bass always sounded like a laser gun to me. And he's in a band called Dead Cross with Mike Patton and the drummer from Slayer, Dave Lombardo, and he still uses that sound, and it's some real complicated and expensive pedals he uses to get it. Well, I was inspired by that sound, and I went through this and tried to mimic that, and I was able to do it. So if you hear these unique distorted bass tones, that's that B3, and it's me imitating what Justin Persons does with his bass. So I used that BC Rich, and I initially started recording these demos and making these sounds, working with that device and programming it to get some really, because the idea came to me, do an all bass album this time, and I got a handful of those songs done, and that bass is huge, and it completely jacked my wrist. I had this horrific wrist pain. I couldn't even play a Stratocaster. I had to gobble down ibuprofen to keep the pain at bay. Back when I was a kid, when I played bass in bands, I used to have a thing with wrist pain. I was playing a Charvel bass that's a full size too. And boy, that really came back around to bite me in the butt. Now I had got my wife this, it's a blue headless bass. I forget, it's a Asmuse is the name of the bass, and I wasn't so hot on the neck, so I ended up finding, I had been looking for years to get her an Ibanez Micro, which is it's a short scale bass, and we found one on Facebook Marketplace. It was a really good deal. The guy was a really good guy who sold it to us, and it was in beautiful condition. So when I realized I was unable to finish, I can't play that BC Rich bass unless it's just for like one song or something, because it'll hammer my wrist. And it may have been when I was sitting here when I did. I don't know if I stood. It may have been some of what I was playing. I really don't know. But when I switched over to because I couldn't play my Strat. Then I healed up and I went back and finished the album using the Ibanez Micro. So I'm looking at my notes here. No 6-string. Well, there is one song where I use 6-string, and that's The Exception Makes the Rule. And I pretty much do that. Like, I had to use an electric on Hokum for this one sound effect part in a Pink Floyd song called Is There Anybody Out There? We did use Gomthe's Boss GT1B processor on this. I don't remember what I used it for. And it may have very well been the Terra Echo. There's a filtered delay called the Terra Echo, and it's an unbelievably cool effect. It's found in the GT1B, and we really lean on that effect in our live performances. Yeah, that Micro is like 18 inches smaller than the the BC Rich. This is just absolutely ridiculously huge. So for the drums, I use software called Addictive Drums 2, version 2. The Reaper is the name of the DAW. I used an M Audio 610 interface. I have a 410 here, and I bought a 610. You can get these. They used to be more expensive, and now they're really cheap. You can get them for $20 is what you should pay for a 610. and it has 6 inputs and 10 outputs, and you can get them for $20 or $30 depending. I think we paid $30 for my 610, and it's got better preamps in it than the 410. So don't get the 410. It is a FireWire interface, and you have to have a Texas Instruments chipset FireWire card. So if you don't have that, it's not going to work right. If you have it, well, you're good to go, and you can get a really affordable, really great sounding recording interface for very cheap. What does this say? 3 tunes. Sat.
The bass sat in the bedroom?
Yeah.
In the corner?
It sat for so many years. Luckily, I had the foresight to actually make those purchases when I did. And now Trump's in office, and he's going to embargo China. So if you need stuff, you should get it now, because those prices are going to go up. In the special thanks, there's people to thank. And the first one is my old friend from Willow Springs, Joel Weishart, has a band called Animax. It's a solo project, and he carries himself as a professional bass musician. It's funny, I'll talk to him and I'll go, oh, I'm so busy working on my second album. And I'm like, hey, this is like my 21st album. I'm busy too. He works though, so I gotta be realistic. I just sit around here and complain. So Joel Weishart, thank you so much. He warned me about how hard this would be to mix, because when you start throwing more than one bass track down, they just can't. It's something called phase cancellation. It nullifies itself. You can't have more than one bass track. So the idea behind this required some forethought into processing different voices, playing higher up the neck, different things you can do to get away with more than one bass track on a song. So this was really challenging, and there is some mud on the recording. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh man, this is properly mixed and mastered, because it's terrible. This is the worst thing I've ever done as far as fidelity goes, and I had no qualms about trying to make it mastered or anything. It was just like throw it out the wall and hope for the best. So special thanks to Kirkland brand ibuprofen for saving my wrist pain. Facebook Marketplace, we got the Ibanez Micro for an unbelievable deal, half of what they sell them for retail or less. We got the free B3 Zoom processor. What a gem of a little unit this is. I wish they would have updated the firmware on it. On the guitar version of that, you can run 6 effects at once. They didn't do that on the bass version, and it's got the memory capability to do it to do that, but they just only did 3 at once because they wanted you to buy their flagship to get 6 in one. Greg Turkington is a comedian who works with more recently worked with Tim Heidecker from Tim and Eric fame. Greg Turkington was he had a label called Amarillo Records, and he was friends with a guy named Trace Bruins. They had a band called Faxed Head. He's just a brilliant comedian. Calls himself Neil Hamburger. He does a bunch of different things. Greg Turkington does. But he has this character of a traditional stand-up comedian where he's just sweating bullets, and he's got real greasy hair, and he's usually holding about 6 or 7 cocktails. He's got his arms full of cocktails that he's spilling all over himself, and he coughs into his microphone. It sounds like he's dying of cancer. And his jokes are horrible. They're the most offensive, and a lot of stuff about the Red Hot Chili Peppers being heroin addicts. Stuff about like unbelievably politically incorrect. And he is open for Faith No More, and he's Mike Patton's buddy. Greg Turkington did this record called Great Phone Calls. It's a prank phone call record. And that was how I discovered him. I had read all about him. I knew who he was, and he was in the Tenacious D movie, I think. And he's got a full-length feature film that he did that's like the most unbelievably depressing thing. He's got these comedy albums that are really depressing too. They're great though. It's great. Anything Greg Turkington does is absolute gold. I'd love to know what his real name is. Is it really Turkington? But the punchline of this is the first track on his Great Phone Calls record, which is a prank phone call record that he did in 1992. And it's on vinyl. And Mike Patton is on that, although his Patton's is... It's just stupid. And creepy. But that's very much if you know how that guy is. I know King Buzzo says most the fans think that it's funny because he's into all this out there stuff and really creepy. But if they knew how creepy he really was, they wouldn't be his fan because he's a horrible pervert. So, track 1 is called I'm in Your Band. And it's one of the funniest things. It's the perhaps the funniest track on that album. Although Pickle Potato, there's a lot of funny stuff on there, but I will leave a link for you in this description of this video. And there also will be a link in Bassist Christ is the name of the album. So you can actually listen to the entire track, which is track 9 on the album. There is a sample that I used. You'll hear some discussion about a person named Jaco Pastorius and a band called The Crinkles. And that's... That's Greg Turkington. So, again, super special, extra super duper special thanks to my brother Bjorn for thinking of me and gifting me that BC Rich. Although when I brought it out there to show to him, I didn't bring it in so the family could see it. I had it in the car and I just showed him. And he had no memory of giving it to me. And I was really disappointed because I want to know the backstory on it. Did you buy it at a garage sale? How much did you pay? Did you find it in a dumpster? Because he does a lot of that. He works, he's a coach of a college hockey team. It's one of the things my brother does. And he also has a ministry through the church working with children where he coaches them. So he's been doing this hockey coach thing and teaching people just good sportsmanship, not trash talking the other team, how to work as a team. And then he says, I know he's coached his kids and he's coached in some more local type leagues. Now he's doing a college hockey team. And one of the things he will do is when those kids go home at the end of the year, they throw out a lot of, that's where I got this. And that's probably where the BC Rich came from. Also, the Chicago Bears were using that facility as their practice spot for spring training. And the Bears would come and buy all this stuff, big screen TVs and all this. And then when they would leave, they would throw it out on the curb. And he would grab it. He's got a storage facility, and then he does a massive sale at the end of the year, and all the proceeds of that go to fund this ministry where he's buying hockey equipment for these children that he... So, that's my little brother Bjorn. He's not one of these Christians that they really look down. He doesn't look down on people and judge them. I've met some people that the way they talk about my brother is like he is a really incredible person, and that's just because he has a legitimate relationship with the Lord, and he's not one of these Christians where, I mean, all you hear about Christians is people that are in the church that are in it for their own personal gain. That's not him at all. For one, he doesn't care about stuff like that. You know what I mean? He really doesn't. And he's somebody that I really admire. Is my younger brother Bjorn, and it's nice to get all that free stuff from him too. I'm not gonna mince words. I mean, that the Court 45 was the greatest gift I ever got in my life. Next to of course, you know, the gift of music, or you know, that being married and having a. But like when you talk about presents that somebody gave you at Christmas, that guitar, that's top of the list for me. So I know this was a really long one, you guys. Thank you for joining me. If you're still here, I think what can I say about the blasphemy thing? My Jesus does play bass, and I think that's funny. That God, obviously, whoever created us knows about that stuff. They're probably really good at it. So, Bassist Christ, it isn't exactly what you think. It isn't me like trying to mock that image. Although when you talk about that type of thing, it gets really sticky when we have other gods before me, because I mean, it's a reference to Jesus, but that's really not what you should be focusing on, is a cross with an image of a guy on it. I don't know. It always seemed weird to me, and I know that's not something you're supposed to talk about, especially in certain religions where they hold that on really a high thing. And so that the Bassist Christ thing for me, of course Jesus would be playing bass. God's got to be on lead guitar, right? Holy Spirit would be on drums. Because the trio, that's all you need. That's the sacred sanctity. And talk about an unbelievable trio. And that's what it would be. So it isn't trying to imply Petey Two Finger as some high caliber musician. That's not it. Don't miss the point on that one. And it certainly isn't the point of the package as a whole, you know. So I hope you can see the sense of humor that's in this music. Although it's instrumental music, it's cram full of jokes. And it's what you're hearing there, that's as pure bottled, distilled Petey Two Finger. That's the essence right there. Except for maybe the Gopnik track, and if you don't know what a Gopnik is, well, you have to look into that. You can educate yourself. You guys, thank you so much for joining me on this one. I hope you enjoyed it. I would love for you to comment on it. I know I did a contest asking for names, and I did get some names. One of them was Basement Dweller, and that was, I was gonna call it Basement Dweller until Bassist Christ came to me. And I thought, well, I have to call it that. So one of the tracks on the album, I believe it's track number 10. I'm not exactly sure, but there is a bassist. Basement Dweller. So special thank you to that guy who won that contest. You win bragging rights. I'm sorry I can't supply you with a bass. I wish I was able to just do things like that on this channel. It certainly would, but I'm not really here. Ultimately, I'm here for the free bandwidth. So I have a place to store this file. It isn't necessarily for you so much, because I can't think like that. I'm not marketable. This isn't for sale. This is just something I love to do. And if anyone else can get some mileage out of it, well, there you go. But more than likely, this is really just for me. And that's how it is. People don't want to hear your original music. And I'm fine with that. I've resigned to that reality, and I could care less about any of the other nonsense, honestly. There is so much accoutrement, dress up, makeup, scarves, the dancing, and all of that stuff that goes along with this business of rock and roll that just makes me sick to my stomach. I wish that I wasn't doing this, because of everything that's associated with it that makes it such an impure thing. People have this image of the guitar player being this long-haired guy who got fired from his job. He needs a ride to the methadone clinic because his girlfriend's car broke down. You know, that type of thing. It is what it is, and that reflects a little bit on my shortcomings as a human being, because I'm this type of person. But at the same time, I'm aware, and I try to not continue with those stereotypes. And then I'll come along and purposely stub my toe and drop something like Bassist Christ and look like it's just a complete, unbelievable pompous ass in the process. So I hope you can see the conflicted duality, just massive a human being that I am. And at least it maybe possibly I'm partially self-aware of that. That being said, you guys, thank you so much for joining me on this one. I know it was really long. Try to keep warm. It's a really cold time of year. The most important thing is that you hug your pets. And I really do mean that. Peace.